Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Gajananam Bhuta Ganadi Sevitam Kapitva Jambu Palasara Bhakshitam Umasutam Shoka Vinasha Karanam Namami Vigneshara Pada Pankajam. Team Param Vedanta extends a warm welcome to one and all for the 27th session of DISHA. In today's class, we studied Dhyana Swaroopam and Dhyana phalam covered in verses 18 to 32 of chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita. Aspects of mental conditioning, relaxation meditation, focusing meditation, expansion meditation, and value meditation covered under the Upasana Yoga of Tattva Bodha will also be discussed. These topics will be presented by Srimati Vasanta. Our revered teacher, Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir, will introduce us to today's topic and later conclude today's presentation with his valuable insights. The teaching quiz today will be presented by Srimati Aruna. Before we begin today's presentation, we have our usual shloka time with Sri Venkatesh Prasad explaining a very interesting shloka. Over to you, Anna.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. A few years back in Bangalore, a man stopped his car for a red signal near RC College Circle. Even after the green signal, his car did not move. There was no response even to the honking from cars behind him. A traffic inspector went near the car to inquire, only to see the man's head resting on the steering wheel. What an amazing death. This incident gives us an insight into the phrase anayasena maranam, a painless death. Today's shloka prays for such a painless death along with two other prayers. It is said this is composed by Adi Shankara, also referred to as Dronastuti, ascribing it to the prayer of the great Sri Dronacharya to Lord Krishna. Other references ascribe this prayer as Sri Vidura's to Lord Krishna. The shloka reads like this. Anayasena maranam vina dainyena jivanam dehi me krupaya shambho vai bhaktim achanchalam. O Lord Shiva, please grant me dehi me krupaya shambho, a peaceful death without pain. Anayasena maranam, a life without any trouble or dependence on others for my basic needs. Vina dainyena jivanam, and a life filled with unwavering, constant bhakti. Vai bhaktim achanchalam, to you, dear Lord. Next slide, please. There is another version to the second line, and the shloka goes like this. Anayasena maranam vina dainyena jivanam is the first line, and the second line is Dehanta tava sannidhyam dehime parameshvara. The second line means, when my soul leaves this body, I must only remember you, dear Lord. Dehante tava sannidhyam. Next slide, please. After praying for peaceful death and life without dependence, the third request, bhakti achanchalam, or dehanta tava sannidhyam, is the key. Because whosoever we remember at the moment of death has a direct impact on where we end up in the next birth, as stated by Lord Krishna in chapter 8, verse 6 of Bhagavad Gita, which goes like this. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tamevaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitaha. At the time of death, there is usually pain, sometimes extreme. There is fear, worry, there is loss of memory, loss of consciousness, or there is a deep concern for loved ones about property, business, etc., etc. We can now see how difficult it is to remember God at that time, especially at the final moment, at that last breath. Therefore, one has to start thinking of the Lord or repeating his name as early as possible in life so that it becomes a deep-rooted habit. Next slide, please. Ishvara Smaranam has to be done continuously. Thus, the only way to remember the Lord at the exact moment of death is to practice doing it continuously now. Hence, we pray for a life filled with devotion. This prayer is a great way to remember the Lord. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Venkatesh, for a very nice mantra that you have introduced to us. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmada Acharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. We have come to a very interesting portion of the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and in DISHA, the objective of studying the Gita is to study with the objective to see how I can draw inner strength and happiness through these verses of the Bhagavad Gita. As the focus is on meditation, primarily Vedantic meditation or Nididhyasanam, and what are the benefits of such forms of meditation. We have discussed this before, but this is an opportunity for us to recap a few things about what meditation is not meant for. Certainly, meditation is not a means for moksha. Why is meditation not a means for moksha? As per Vedantic understanding, we are already that. The problem is, moksha is not a goal to be achieved. It is a siddha vastu. It is something that is already there within me. But because of a layer of ignorance, I am unaware of my true nature, and therefore I am suffering from samsara. So the real answer to the problem of samsara will be jnanam. Jnanam alone is the means for moksha. So the next question comes, can meditation be a means for jnanam? The answer again is no. Meditation is not a means for jnanam. Meditation is not one of the pramanams or the instruments for which I get knowledge. Whenever we do meditation, sometimes we have a wonderful experience. We have an extraordinary experience and sometimes a very divine experience, and we tend to enjoy this experience. Now, is meditation for such a purpose? Our teachers warn us again and again. Meditation is not for any extraordinary experience. Also, meditation is not for Brahman experience. Why is meditation not for Brahman experience? There is a mantra we are all familiar with. Na tatra suryo bhati, na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhati, kuto yam agni, tvameva bhantam. It is because of Brahman, the sun, moon, stars, and everything becomes enlightened. It is because of the consciousness within me. So therefore, meditation is certainly not a means to get Brahman experience. About these things, let us be very clear. That self, that Atma within me is the experiencer, and it can never be something that can be experienced through meditation or through any other means. So let us be very clear that meditation is not an end. It is only a means. And if it is a means, let us be very clear in our understanding. What is the means, or why are we spending so much time in meditation? Now, there are two important purposes of meditation, and this can be classified as before spiritual knowledge and after spiritual knowledge. Before we get spiritual knowledge, that means before we go to a guru who is going to enlighten us about these spiritual topics, it is like before we enter into a postgraduate university, we have to have a certain sense of eligibility. That eligibility is called jnana yogyata. And this jnana yogyata is possible through a form of meditation which is called upasana. Upasana is defined as saguna ishvara jnana, meditating on the Lord with form, ekarupa or anekarupa. And importantly, it is a form of a mental activity. Upasana is of three kinds because it is a mental activity. It can be manasa japa, manasa puja, manasa parayanam of either ekarupa or vishvarupa. And for that, there are various mantras that you might take as part of manasa japa. About that, we are all familiar. So this is an important slide for us to remember the distinction between upasana and nididhyasana. Upasana is a form of meditation that is done before we enter into Vedantic knowledge to get us a certain eligibility. And once I have the eligibility and once I have that knowledge, it is like adding a sweetener to my drink. I have to stir it. I have to internalize that teaching. And Nididhyasanam is a tool for us to be able to establish ourselves in that great spiritual knowledge that the teacher has given to us. Now, from Jnanam, the next big jump, and that is what takes a lot of time, and that is where most of us are stuck in. We all have spiritual knowledge. But when does Jnanam become a jñāna niṣṭā? Even though I have spiritual knowledge, I am not a jivan mukta. I don't live that life. I have got knowledge through Shravanam. I have clarified all my doubts, and now through Mananam, I'm very clear that Aham Brahmasmi. Even though I know such refined thought, Brahma Satyam, Jagan Nitya, my day-to-day life does not seem to have changed significantly. And that is because we have lived not one life, but so many lives with a certain limited notion that I am limited, that I'm a dependent being. And this is called Viparya Bhavana. And because of this habitual notion, I need to be able to slowly work on this and see myself in a new role. I need to now have a very alert living and remind myself all the time, I'm not this ordinary body-mind complex, but I'm only using this body-mind complex as an Atma, as a Mukta Purusha, and that is how I need to live my life. You will realize it is not, it is only the assimilated knowledge that is going to nourish us. It is just like in food, it is not what you eat which nourishes us, it's what is assimilated. So I have got the knowledge, I have clarified the doubts. Now, the real block is from Jnanam to Jnana niṣṭā, and that is where meditation is important. We all know this, Aham Brahmasmi. We are not human beings with a spiritual experience, but the other way around. We are spiritual beings with an incidental human experience. And because of this body-mind, which is an instrument through which I interact, I have a feeling of limitations. But our teachers say that is not the truth. Just like I see a rainbow, I see a mirage, it is my experience. But how we have been taught to understand our experiences of limitations is not the truth. I am someone other than. So once I have Shraddha in the Guru, I have Shraddha in the scriptures, I now know I am someone other than what I experience. And through the process of Nididhyasanam, I need to claim my true nature. Please pay attention as Vasanta does this DISHA for us when we go through all the steps once again. And when you have these, this will be able to help us to go into a teaching quiz, which will be conducted by Aruna. Vasanta, please.
Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Today's topic is on meditation, and we will be covering verses 18 to 32 in chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita. We will also be covering the mental conditioning portion of Tattva Bodha. So let's look now at how we are going to cover the topic today. First, we'll start with why meditation. Then we'll look at the way Ashtanga Yoga from Patanjali Yoga Sutras. We'll look at Ashtanga Yoga from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras and Upasana Yoga from Tattva Bodha. And then we will cover Dhyana Swaroopam, which is the gradual process of meditation through the stages of Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. And we will finally look at Dhyana phalam, which is the culmination of the meditation process and the qualities of a Jivan Mukta. So first and foremost, why meditation? Can we learn to ride a bike from theoretical lectures? No, right? So same way, the Guru can teach us the sense of Aham Brahmasmi in a million different ways. But if we have to experience it for ourselves, it is like learning to ride a bike. We have to do the practical portion, and the practical portion is meditation. The detailed steps that Krishna gives in chapter 6 will help us to reach the Aham Brahmasmi state through meditation. Remember, though, that we can't just do meditation without having done Shravanam. Shravanam is a very important prerequisite for being able to do our Vedantic meditation. So now, can I go to a lab and run an experiment without having learned the theory behind it? So with the meditation, the way it is that with Upasana yoga, we can do it before we've done the Shravanam and before we've got the jñāna. But when it comes to Vedantic meditation, which is nididhyasanam, we need to be able to have the Shravanam and the jñānam behind us to be able to do this part of the meditation. So the reason is that if I don't know about God and Atma, how am I going to be able to do the meditation on God and Atma? That is why it is very important to have a guru and to do a lot of Shravanam before we embark on meditation. Through Shravanam, we get Jnanam, and it takes meditation and Shravanam for us to go from Jnanam to Jnana niṣṭā. Jnana niṣṭā is when a person has reached the state of having experienced the Mahavakyam, Aham Brahmasmi, and obtained aparoksha jnana. In our previous, next slide, please. In our previous DISHA sessions, we've been going through the 8 steps of Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga. We've already covered Yama, that is what we need to avoid, and Niyama, the daily practices to be followed to ensure a calm mind. These are called Bahiranga Sadhanani, or external practices. Then we've also covered the Antaranga Sadhanani, or the internal practices. They are asana, which is yogic postures, pranayama, which is regulated breathing, and pratyahara, which is sense control. Today, we're going to be covering the meditation aspects. First, we have dharana, which is turning the mind away from the world and fixing it on the object of meditation. And that is essentially focusing. Next, we have dhyana, which is retaining the focus. And finally, we have savikalpa samadhi, which is being naturally absorbed in the object of meditation. Let's start off with dharana. Dharana is bringing into focus the object of meditation, much like focusing a camera or a magnifying glass. To do this, we have to use thought modification toward the object and away from the world. This means that we keep on bringing our thought to the object so that we can concentrate on the object, and we also zone out the rest of the world. Initially, the object that we choose can be an niṣṭā devata, or chakras for chakra meditation, or a picture of God, or the sun, or a lamp, or a candle, or just a diya, or anything divine or spiritual. With time, the focus will shift to the all-pervading Atma. The next stage is dhyana. Once we've got our object in focus, we want to be able to retain the focus on the object of meditation, and that process is dhyana. It is like keeping the camera focused from the time we focus it to the time we click it. We have to retain the focus. Dhyana at the beginning is a constant effort to bring back the mind to the object of meditation, like a tug of war. If we were to look next slide, at the constant tussle that happens in dhyana, first there is the willpower, which gives us the determination to put forth the effort to focus. Once we've got the focus, then we have to concentrate on the object, and that leads to retention of the object in our mind. But soon enough, a distraction leads to loss of focus. Once there's loss of focus, again, our willpower comes back into the fray and creates the determination that makes us put in the effort again to reestablish the focus, and then the concentration to retain the focus, until yet another distraction comes into play. This is the biggest hurdle in meditation, and the only way to overcome it is through constant practice. Once we have become proficient in dhyana to the point where it becomes second nature to us, then we are in samadhi. The first stage of samadhi is called savikalpa samadhi. Here, we still treat God as separate from us. When we are in this samadhi state, we are automatically constantly absorbed in the object of meditation. All the distractions that have plagued us so far have long ended. So our struggle with these distractions is also gone. From trying to concentrate on this object and all kinds of thoughts filling our mind, we are now at a point where it's only similar godly thoughts that keep coming to us. Note that the mind will always have thoughts, but gradually we have to channel the mind into focusing its thoughts only on godly matters. And that's where we are when we are in samadhi. I'm now going to shift gears a bit and talk about how Upasana Yoga of Tattva Bodha looks at meditation. As we have discussed a little earlier in today's discussion by Dr. Hegde, Upasana Yoga is before we have jnana and through shravana, and so that's what this yoga is about. So the purpose of Upasana Yoga is to make our personality Purushartha worthy. There are three parts in Upasana Yoga. First is physical conditioning or Kaikam, which takes care of physical fitness. Then there is verbal conditioning or Vachikam, which makes sure that our speech doesn't cause harm. It's truthful, caring, and helpful. Finally, there is mental conditioning or Manasa Amsha, and that is the meditation part. According to Upasana Yoga, there are 4 types of meditation. The first one is relaxation meditation, where physical, verbal, and sensorial withdrawal happens. We stop interacting in all these ways with the world, and so it culminates in the relaxation of the mind because everything has been withdrawn. The second type is called focusing meditation. That is the ability to focus on a topic for a length of time. For example, Manasa Puja and Manasa Japa. The third type is expansion meditation, which entails expansion of mind by visualization of totality of creation, Vishwarupa Dhyana, or creation as universal form of God. So finally, there is the value meditation, which is a transformational meditation for inner transformation by thought modification. Here, what we do is watch our thoughts and look for the seed thought that is coming in. Sometimes while we are thinking about something, the seed of another type of thought comes. This meditation teaches us to catch that seed and assess whether it is working for our good or not. If it is not working for our good, we learn to nip it right there. As they say, the subtlest beejams of our destiny, that's what our thoughts are. We will see how we can use the types of meditation that are there in Upasana Yoga for our Nididhyasanam, that is the Vedantic meditation. So while we don't have the concept of relaxation meditation in Vedantic meditation, we do use physical, verbal, and sensory withdrawal as a preparation for focus in the dharana stage. We should note that we never stop thought completely in Vedantic meditation. Thoughts are natural and an integral part of Vedantic meditation. We just channel the mind into creating godly thoughts. We use focusing meditation in dhyana by focusing on a spiritual object for a length of time first, and then we gradually move to focus on attributes of God, and finally move to focus on attributes of Atma. In the Savikalpa Samadhi stage, we use expansion meditation to visualize totality of creation as Atma. Then we visualize self as Atma. The value meditation we do is a constant introspection, more or less like manana. We identify seed thoughts of jealousy, envy, anger, hate, desire, greed, pride, possessiveness, and delusion, and we use jnanam to nip them in the bud. We know that these thoughts are not going to help us in any way, and we know that our thoughts are not us. We are separate from our thoughts. So we have control and can choose to not let these negative thoughts take root and sprout. In Vedantic meditation, the combination of dharana, dhyana, and samadhi is called samyama or Dhyana Swaroopam. In the first step, God is an outside object. In the second step, God is in everything and in me too. In the third step, God is creation and everything is in God. Finally, in the fourth step, God and I are one. Aham Brahmasmi. The yogi who realizes the Mahavakyam, Aham Brahmasmi, has attained the Dhyana phalam and is in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Actually, Swami Paramathananda ji has a very nice analogy to illustrate what is Savikalpa versus Nirvikalpa. He says, if we watch a movie, initially we're looking at the hero in the movie as separate from ourselves. And we're saying the hero did this and the hero did that. If at some stage we start identifying with the hero, we get to the point where we don't differentiate between the hero and us. And we feel like we're doing everything the hero is doing. That is the difference between Savikalpa and Nirvikalpa, duality versus oneness. Let us now follow the journey of a person going from mumukshu to yogi all the way to being a jivan mukta through meditation. Before the dharana stage, the mumukshu will observe bahiranga and antaranga sadhanani to prepare for meditation. He will also do a lot of shravanam with his guru before embarking on the meditation. He will identify a spiritual object that appeals to him, and he will sit in a place with minimal external distractions. After physical, verbal, and sensory withdrawal, he will guide his mind to focus on the object. This is the dharana part. Next is the dhyana part. Here, he will stay focused on the object with determination and a tireless mind using focusing meditation. Whenever he is distracted, he will gently bring the mind back to the object using the spiritual vocabulary from the guru to reinforce his spiritual thoughts. He can use namavalis, stotras, bhajans, etc. to help him constantly think of God. When he gets to the point where he's meditating on the Atma, he starts focusing on the different characteristics of the Atma, like those enlisted in the Nirvana Shatakam. The mukshu is constantly introspecting to find stuck thought patterns and cravings and becomes adept at identifying and resolving them. The results of going through dhyana are that with discipline and practice, focus becomes almost automatic, and it's no more a tug of war. The yearnings of the senses get restrained, the mind withdraws from selfish cravings. Gradually, the mind becomes like a lamp in a windless spot, and it never flickers or wavers. As the personality gets cleansed of flaws, mental agitations subside, and as extraneous thoughts are restrained through meditation, the mind quietens down and tranquility pervades. Now the mumukshu moves from the dhyana stage to the samadhi stage. He is at the point where he can automatically have unwavering focus without having to push himself. He's now in a constant flow of similar godly thoughts, and the separation between yogi and God is slowly melting away. With extraneous thoughts, yearnings of senses, and selfish cravings restrained, and freedom from personality flaws, his inner agitations subside, and he has no more distractions. He now has a very tranquil mind. He now becomes a yogi and he revels slowly in his ananda and purnatvam, and guided by his guru realizes that this ananda and purnatvam are his own nature, and therefore there is no fear of losing them. At this stage, the yogi starts meditating on the Atma. Next. Once the yogi is effortlessly in meditative state and focused on the Atma, he experiences limitless Ananda and oneness with Brahman. Having recognized that Ananda is his true nature, he recognizes nothing can be more valuable than Ananda, and he is able to see clearly the Maya of the ephemeral world. Therefore, he is unperturbed by the calamities of life. He also perceives Atma in all beings in Atma. So he sees everyone with the same compassion and feels everyone's joy and sorrow as his own. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Having found oneness with Krishna, this Jivan Mukta worships and abides in Krishna while being engaged in the world. In summary, Vedantic meditation is a critical final step to assimilate jnanam from Guru and become a Jivan Mukta. Vedantic meditation is possible only after obtaining a solid foundation in Vedanta from a Guru through Shravanam. Vedantic meditation has the following stages: Dharana, Dhyana, Savikalpa Samadhi, Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Through these stages, a mumukshu transforms into a Jivan Mukta. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Vasanta, for a very nice presentation where you did a blending of Ashtanga Yoga. Because even in our tradition, although these are two different philosophical schools, Swamiji says the methodology used by Ashtanga Yoga is particularly useful. And you brought in how we can use the techniques of Ashtanga Yoga into Vedantic meditation, which we know as before knowledge, Upasana, which gives us Jnana, Yogyata, and then after knowledge we will get Jnanam, and from Jnanam how we move to Jnana, niṣṭā. In this particular section of the Bhagavad Gita, you have a set of wonderful verses which talk about the various benefits that come from Brahma Vidya. That means once the mind is ready, once we get the knowledge, and once the knowledge now becomes a jnana niṣṭā, what are the benefits? The first one is called chitta uparaman. That means total tranquility of the mind. Imagine the mind that cannot be disturbed. The mind is aware of everything, but anything in the external world does not upset the mind. That is one of the benefits of jnanam and jnana niṣṭā. It is not a thoughtless state, but it is a state where the mind is quiet, because now the mind knows that I am someone other than my body and mind, and therefore anything that happens to my body and mind cannot really affect me. So the first thing is chitta uparamanam, and therefore the quietness of the mind. The second benefit a person gets is atmanam pashyan. It means a person is now able to see, I am not this limited body mind. Aham brahmasmi. I'm able to see myself as much bigger, much more inclusive than what I ever imagined myself to be. And therefore, we have this state of understanding of Atma Darshanam. I am not Mano Buddhi Hankara Chittani Naham. Then what am I? Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. I am very convinced that I am Atma Brahma. This is the second benefit which have come in verse 20. In verse 21, there is the third understanding of Atyantika Sukham, the highest form of Ananda. This Ananda is not an experiential Ananda. Whenever I see something or when I experiencing something which is good, then I have a certain beginning and I have a certain end. But now once I have the knowledge that I am Atma and I am of the nature of Sat-Chit and limitless consciousness, limitless existence, that means I am limitless. I am Ananta. And this knowledge that I am Ananta gives me a different kind of Ananda. And this is the real Ananda when I see myself as limitless or ananta. This comes in verse 21. In the same verse, you also have this understanding of Tattva niṣṭā. From Jnanam, we come to the state of jñāna, niṣṭā. And if this understanding is practiced over a period of time, because for so many lives we have lived through an understanding that I'm a limited being. And I tend to make mistakes, just like when a person goes to a country where the driving is different from our side. And if you have to sit in the car, you inadvertently go to the wrong side and try to enter the door where the driver sits when you are a passenger in a cab, for example. So, but if this understanding is established, a person enters into a state of sahaja samadhi, all the time remembering my true nature. This understanding, which will be explained again in verse 22, is atyantika labha. It is the highest accomplishment ever. There is no greater accomplishment. This understanding of my true nature, that I am the real source of limitless peace, security, and happiness. If this is my understanding, there can be no greater accomplishment. And when there is no greater accomplishment, dukkhena gurunapi, even the greatest sorrow, even if I experience something that is very upsetting in the world, it will not shake me, because now I know I am someone other than the body-mind. I also know Sashwan Nashwara Neva Vishwam Akilam. The whole world can perish in front of me, including my body and mind. And I continue to remain as an observer, but in my mind, although initially the thought comes as what, but I'm quickly able to transform it to so what, once I understand this atyantika dukkha nivritti. This is the sixth benefit. And the seventh and the final benefit is very important to understand is dukkha samyoga viyoga. What is dukkha samyoga viyoga? That I dissociate myself with association with my body-mind complex. Association with my body-mind complex is to be seeing that I am a limited body-mind complex, and therefore I have sorrow. But when I dissociate, then what happens? I come to a very natural state, and I will see my true nature is Chidananda Rupaha Shivoham Shivoham. Such a person now has a clear understanding. Brahma Satyam or Aham Satyam. I don't have any doubt about saying Aham Satyam. And the conviction with you say Aham Satyam, Jagan Mithya, Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. I am Brahman. And that should be very clear. So, what is the purpose of Nididhyasanam? This understanding should not just be in my conscious mind. It should go into the subconscious mind. And once it is established in the subconscious mind, even in every provoking situations, I will understand many byproducts of it. And what are the byproducts of it? I am Nityaha, I am Shuddhaha, I am Buddhaha, I am Muktaha. My true nature is Akarta, Abhokta. And before I am Abhokta, nothing can really affect me. I am not in the world, but it is the other way around. The whole world is in me. That is the level of understanding a person should get into. Therefore, once I have this elevated understanding of myself, the five important anatmas, my body, my mind, my family, my possessions, my professions, all these are of a lower order of reality. And anything anatma will constantly undergo change. It is not going to be the same. And many of the changes may be unpleasant. And therefore, I understand, even though some unpleasant changes are happening to these five anatma aspects about me, they cannot really affect me because I am asangaha. There can be no true relationship between the higher order and the lower order. And these are two different levels of reality. And therefore, it cannot affect me. I am. Finally, what do? Remember these verses all the time. In fact, if Vedantic meditation is understood, a person does not have to sit in a quiet place all the time. In the middle of traffic, in the middle of noise, in the middle of all forms of vyavahara, remember these words. Tad chintanam, tad katanam, anyon tad prabodhanam, ekadeka paratvam cha brahmabhyas pitur buddhaha. Other than these thoughts, let us not really entertain any other thoughts as the Shruti or the background noise or the background Shruti in my mind. I will be entertaining many thoughts. My mind can process all this information, but I know Aham Brahmasmi Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. And Swamiji has given us these 5 capsules to remember all the time. And what is that? I am of the nature of eternal and all-pervading consciousness, which means I am Nityaha, Shuddhaha, Buddhaha, Muktaha, Shivoham, Shivoham, Shiva Swarupaha. This let it be my Shruti. Then what? I am the only source of permanent peace, security, and happiness. Therefore, I don't have to depend on any object, any person, any situation for peace, security, and happiness. All of them come and go. I am the one who's the lender of peace, security, and happiness. By my mere presence, I give life to this material body, and through this material body, I'm able to experience this material universe. And because I'm of a higher order of reality, I am not affected by anything that occurs or takes place in the material world or into the material body. Let this understanding be the blueprint of my life. If I forget this for even for a short time, I lapse back into samsara. By remembering my true nature, I convert my life into a sport or a leela. These words from the Kaivalya Upanishad, Mayeva Sakalam Jatam, my Sarvam Pratishtitam, my Sarvam Layam Yati Tad Brahmadvayam Asmayam Aham. Let us claim that. If you go into the Bhagavad Gita, you will see so many verses which talk about a Jivan Mukta, which is talking about our true nature. And in this portion of the Bhagavad Gita, in the 6th chapter also, we have many beautiful verses. Let us revise them as we go through these DISHA classes. Also, remember there will be certain blocks, that is laya. When we do meditation, there is a sense of drowsiness. My mind gets distracted, vikshepa, or my mind can get stunned, that is called kashaya or rasaswada. I can get too absorbed into the experience of meditation. There are solutions to all these, and that we will be seeing in the subsequent classes. We conclude today's class in verse 32, and verse 32 is the climax of this whole portion. And this one particular verse is my favorite verse in the entire Bhagavad Gita, which goes like this: Atmau pammena sarvatra samam pashyati yorjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sa yogi paramo mata. Paramo mate. Such a yogi is the highest yogi. That person who is able to see himself and others and everybody in him, and a person who makes no distinction between himself or others because he is able to see that there are no others. With that, we come to the teaching quiz, which will be conducted by Aruna. Aruna, please.
Hari Om. So today, listening to Vasanta, we have the first question. We have learned of Dhyana Swaroopam and Dhyana phalam in today's class. So which are the 3 stages of meditation mentioned in Dhyana Swaroopam? We have the answer, please.
Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi.
Perfect. Yes, thank you. The next question is, Dharana is A, turning the mind away from the world. B, exercise in concentration. C, focusing the mind on the object of meditation. D, all of the above.
D, all of the above.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So question 3, reading the mind on the focus is called blank dash.
Dhyana.
Dhyana, correct. Thank you. Question 4, is it true or false? Natural absorption in the object of meditation is Samadhi. True or false?
True.
Yes, thank you. Question 5. Yada viniyatam chittam atmanyeva vatisthate nihaspriha sarvakamebhyo yukta ityuchyate tada. Now this is the 18th verse, and which is the term used in the above verse for nirvikalpa samadhi?
Atma eva avatishtate.
Perfect. Atmanyeva vatisthate, correct. Question 6. Yatha dipo nivatastho nengate sopama sprita yogino yata chittasya yunjato yogamatmanaha. So in the above 19th verse, Lord Krishna speaks of Atmakara Vritti using the simile of the steadiness in a flame. In the case of the flame, one can provide a glass or any other kind of enclosure. But the mind being a very subtle instrument, what is the enclosure to keep it away from Anakara Vritti, according to Swami Paramathananda has said?
First is Vairagya and
Yes.
the other is Viveka Abhyasa.
Vairagya is correct, and Bhakti is also considered an enclosure to keep the Anakara Vritti away. Bhakti and Vairagya. Thank you. This is fill in the blanks. In the process of meditation, when the will is required, it is called blank samadhi. And in the process of meditation, when the will is not required, it is called blank samadhi.
The will is required in Savikalpa, and when it is
Right.
not required, it is Nirvikalpa.
Perfect, thank you. Now, what is the difference between yogic meditation and Vedantic meditation?
In yogic meditation, there are no thoughts, and Vedantic meditation is Atma Akara Vritti.
Correct. So yogic meditation is a state of no thoughts at all, chitta vritti nirodhaha. And Vedantic meditation, as you mentioned, is meditating on the self, atmakara vritti, through shravana, mananam, and nididhyasanam. Thank you. In this 27th verse, prashanta manasam hyenam yoginam sukhamuttamam upaiti shanta rajasam brahma bhutama kalmasham. This is like the climax of the end verse for these number of verses that we have seen now. What does this verse convey?
The phalam of Vedantic meditation, I'm not sure.
Okay, it says that it says that the jnani enjoys prashanta manasam. That is by removing the rajasic vritti and the tamasic vritti, that is shanta rajasam, and thereby he or she enjoys the highest ananda or purnatvam. Number 10, sarva bhutastamatmanam sarva bhutani chatmani ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshanaha. This is the 29th verse, and which is the word used in this verse, used by Lord Krishna for a jnani whose mind is disciplined and saturated with the self and with knowledge.
Yoga Yuktatma.
Correct. Yoga Yuktatma is a person whose mind is totally disciplined and saturated with this knowledge of the self. Next question. How does the jnani perceive the world? A, samatvam and samadarshanam. a shift from the body-mind complex to the all-pervading Atma. C, a withdrawal from limited identification to limitless identification, and a move from the narrow I to the universal I. E, all of the above.
All of the above.
Correct. Correct. So now coming to Tattva Bodha, the topic of Upasanam, what is the difference between Parayanam and Japa?
Japa is one word meditation. Parayanam could be reciting a whole textbook.
Right. Parayanam is chanting any prayer, and Japa is repeating only one name of the Lord. Perfect. Then in the Tattva Bodha, all forms of meditation are classified into 4 types based on the type of discipline that we want to inculcate in the mind. So the first one is relaxation meditation. The second one is focusing meditation. And the third form of meditation is expansion meditation, which is also known as
Vishwarupa Ishvara meditation.
correct, Vishwarupa Dhyanam. Here we look up to the creation as the universal form of God. Here the totality is visualized. This is a true or false. The fourth type of meditation is the vital part of meditation, which is the value meditation. Here, the total focus is on the thought pattern, modification of the thoughts. True or false?
True.
Yes, yes, correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Aruna and team, for putting together a very interesting quiz. Our profound thanks to Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir for his constant guidance in helping us understand our scriptures in the simplest possible way. Our heartfelt thanks to Srimati Vasanta for a wonderful presentation, and special thanks to Sri Venkatesh Prasad for introducing us to a powerful prayer. Team Param Vedanta, thank each one of you for your consistent patronage that makes this journey so much worthwhile. Our next session is on Friday, the 23rd September, which is about Bhagavad Gita verse by verse, wherein we'll be completing the last 4 verses of chapter 15, Purushottama Yoga. On Monday, the 26th September, we have DISHA session 28, covering the topics of Dhyana Pratibandha and Parihara verses of chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, as also Daivi and Asuri Sampad, the divine and demonic thought patterns under the topic of Upasana Yoga of Tattva Bodha. We conclude today's session with our usual prayer. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.